My wife and I both grew up on traditional small beef cattle farms where you basically graze the cattle all summer and then feed hay all winter. All of that hay we made ourselves. When we started our operation here in Roxboro, we could either be in the cow business or the equipment business. So we chose to buy cows.
In this country, most of our beef cattle producers have 25 or 30 head of cattle or less, and not many of them, in fact almost none of them, can control their income from cattle. But they can do a lot to control their expenses. That anything they can do to affect that cost of feed will have a significant impact.
I was actually feeding hay by the 1st of November. I was running out of grass totally by the middle of December or the 1st of January. My name is Brad Story. I live in Hamptonville, North Carolina, and I'm primarily a beef cattle hay producer. When I came out to feed hay, I would bring 2 or 3 rolls of hay out with a tractor. And the year before, I really don't know how many rolls I'd fed, but somewhere in the neighborhood probably of 100, 125 rolls.
It's just very, very difficult in our region to make quality hay. It's very hard to do, both from a harvest, a baling standpoint, all the way to proper storage. We just have so much humidity and heat and inopportune rain or intermittent rain or lack of rain.
Hay is getting more and more expensive, especially with fuel prices and the twine and everything else, not to mention the wear and tear on your equipment. I had to look for other options because of the economic factors.
Feed cost on a beef cattle farm is usually controlled through the management of pasture. Okay, we can't grow grass in the middle of the winter when the temperatures are below 40 degrees or so, but we can accumulate growth previous to that season, accumulated in the field. Sometimes it's called stockpiling. When the grazing season on the rest of the farm is completed, we can move animals into that stockpile or accumulated growth and ration it out in a reasonable way to extend the season that animals are actually getting their feed from the pasture.
I try to stockpile for the winter time so I don't have to feed hay. But I usually try to get the cattle off of that land by the beginning of August and usually start rotational grazing, strip grazing that in November and right on through until February, and then move them back to the other pastures that I didn't have stockpile once they start growing and producing in the spring. Well, I've lived on a farm my whole life. My parents had a farm in New Jersey. My mom has been in farming her whole life. Just enjoy it and like being outside working on the farm. Right now I'm running about 85 head. It's about 40 cows and about 45 calves. I'm looking to eventually try about 100 head on this grazing program.
Stockpiling forages and strip grazing livestock in the winter, it's not really a new idea, but it's getting a lot of renewed interest because of increased energy prices. A lot of people are taking renewed interest in this practice. Probably the bottom line is they all want to make their operation a little bit better, and they all want to make money and save on their energy cost.
Okay, here's a section of a pasture that we're going to utilize for stockpiling this winter. For the most part, this is the type of pasture we like. Quite a bit of a mixture of warm season and cool season grasses, and it should stockpile very well. When you're planning a stockpiling program or looking at a stockpiling program, you need to think a little bit about your cattle. What are their nutrient requirements going to be through the wintertime? Do you have the type of forage that stockpiles very well that will give you ample fall growth and that will weather very well through the wet, possibly cold, icy, snowy winters that we may have here in this area.
It's middle of August right now, and I've set aside about 60 acres of land that I'm not going to have the cattle on until November, trying to look for around maybe 3,000 pounds of grass to 5,000 pounds of grass per acre.
I hope that I'll go through the 1st of March, just like I did last year, and possibly even have more residual grass left. And I want to try to leave at least, a good 2 inches to help the grass grow back quicker.
Usually in our system, it's sometime around late November, early December. We'll just start at the water source with the cattle, and then we'll start strip grazing.
We started the strip grazing, the rotational grazing, in the far paddock, and I moved the fence every day, equivalent of about 30 feet, and then the whole distance across the paddock. And they had fresh green grass, and the cows got so accustomed to it that they would be standing lined up waiting for me to move the fence each day. When I walk to that gate, they know exactly what's coming. They're going to get lush green grass, and they love it. We tested the grass for the food value as well as the hay. My hay tested out about 7% protein. The grass is testing at about 14 to 15% protein. It's what the cows want.
One of the reasons we like stockpiling is from a nutritional standpoint, it's just simply better than hay. If you do a side-by-side nutritional analysis, you'll see on just about whatever components you want to look at, crude protein, digestible energy, the stockpile forage is going to have an advantage over dry hay. But the labor involved in stockpiling, a lot of people say that's just too much work. I say it's too much work to put up hay all summer and then feed hay all winter. We use a four-wheeler. It's really enjoyable thing to do, to go out and work with the cattle, see the cattle, and not have to get out on a tractor.
It's helped me keep my costs down as far as fertilizer and the diesel. With diesel at almost $4 a gallon right now, I'm not using any in my tractors in the winter time, and I'm sure I'll have to do some fertilizing, but with the distribution of the manure, I think I'm saving on fertilizer also, which is very expensive.
I think one of the benefits that probably doesn't get talked about enough with grazing stockpile forage is the distribution of the manure. We all understand that fertilizer, regardless of the source, is extremely expensive right now. You really want those nutrients to stay in your pasture where they can be utilized, and we really get a nice manure distribution with our cattle when we use strip grazing.
Because we're generally rationing out the pasture in very small strips, you've got a high density of animals on a very small area. Their manure and urine is more uniformly distributed, and as you move across the pasture, they pretty much move that distribution of manure and urine across that pasture, getting good utilization of the forage and good distribution of nutrients.
Come on, girls, woo! It's something that doesn't take a lot of time.
and just offers a huge benefit. With some minimal investment in step-in post, poly wire, and some geared reels, you can set up your paddocks on a weekend and just take them down each day or every couple of days, whatever suits your management style.
It would save you time if you got set up and prepared. Total time walking from the house out here, moving the fence, and then going back 30 minutes. And that's about the same time, if not actually a little shorter, than it would take me when I was putting 2 and 3 rolls of hay out here a couple of winters ago. It's 16th of February, we're almost at the end of winter. We can see some grass greening up now, and I have enough grass in this pasture to continue probably till the end of February, maybe the end of the first week of March. I will have grazed this pasture for 3 months with no hay. I haven't even cranked my tractor to move a roll of hay except when I had a neighbor come wanting to buy some of the hay that I had left over.
I've probably got 12 inches of grass right here. There was no need to bale and put it in the barn and spend the time baling and the diesel fuel baling, and then the money to put in the barn, and then the time to get it back out of the barn and bring back out here, either roll the round bales out for the cows. And it's much easier for me and much more economical for me just to leave it in the field and let the cows eat it. I started off with probably around 60 acres of stockpile grass. I still have about 30 acres, so I'm only about halfway through my stockpile, which will last me right through the rest of February, March, and April.
You've got these producers in these different geographical locations throughout the state. A lot of the neighbors, a lot of the other producers nearby are taking note of what these guys are doing, and they're seeing the benefits themselves, all the energy savings, the less waste, being able to distribute nutrients on their farm, being able to reuse and recycle nitrogen and phosphorus.
When I first started this program, I was afraid that maybe the cattle would not winter as good and maybe drop a body score, but I've had no problems, and some of them even look better to me after the grazing than they did before I started in the wintertime.
When the snow was on the ground, we had about 4 inches of snow, and then it iced. It came a big sleet storm on top of it. I was worried. I didn't think they would be able to dig through it, but they would scratch with their feet, they would paw with their feet and take their noses and actually break that ice crust on top to get to the green grass. Every time I moved a fence, they were right there breaking that crust until it melted. It's what cows love, green grass, and my cows are in probably as good a shape as I've ever had them coming out of winter at this point in time.
We probably got a couple of more weeks left in our stockpile grazing for this winter. It's been a great season so far, and the stockpile's held up really well, and the cows have come through in excellent condition.
Some of the original research on stockpile or accumulated growth of cool season grasses started back in the 60s. So we've known for many, many years that we could accumulate a lot of growth in the fall. We knew that it would maintain its quality into the winter. We knew we could ration it out and utilize 75% or more of what was there. So we've known it a long time, but now with the price of fuel, the price of labor, or just having time to do it, I think a lot more people are starting to think about the advantages of this system.
Too many people have gotten in a mindset that have cattle that they have to feed hay. They have to take that roll of hay out there or they're not doing their cattle justice. But you can see these cows would much rather have that green grass than to have hay. The hay that I have made, I'm not going to make in the future because I've seen that this system works. If you try this system, I can't help but believe that you're going to like it. I believe you would see that it would be a great savings, but the biggest thing is it's going to be a big improvement for your pasture and the cattle. I will continue to do this grazing system in the future as long as I have cattle on this property.